We should start the MLM Reddit where people can go and put their reservations, right? Because that's how we found out that the Cyber-Trike had about 1 million. There's a lot of those pages on Reddit.
We're not even going to call it the MLM. It's the Cyber-Trike from now on, guys, right? Today we're here to talk about FUV, obviously. Did all of you guys watch the MLM video?
Mean Lean Machine.
Mean Lean Machine. What do you think of the name? That's step one, I guess.
Wait. But it's all about the 222 event, right?
It's not the 222 event?
Oh, well, it wasn't just Mean Lean Machine.
That's true.
So yeah, you guys were watching. What'd you think of the event? Takeaways? Had some time to process it?
I think it was the best event they've done so far. They've had a few other events that they've hosted, but even like their previous earnings calls were pretty like iffy in terms of like quality and polish. But I think this was by far their best event.
They're getting better.
Yeah.
Well, obviously the big announcement is the Mean Lean Machine. That's really the big thing here, right? Was there anything else that was super large?
They talked about a range increase for the FUV just by changing batteries, which I thought was pretty cool. I forget what the number is. I'm going to look it up right now, but I want to say it was almost 20%.
Did he actually say 20%?
I don't know if it was that high, but they had like a number that mattered. So let me just figure that out.
He said he's going to have multiple ranges and then he'll do a ballast. He doesn't want to change the weight. We will have different range options. And yes, I think the new batteries, since they have more energy density, then I agree with you. There should be a rate, but I didn't hear him say 20%. That's the one thing I didn't hear.
No. I'll find the presentation.
And Lee, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I would agree. The battery was already known before, but that's pretty a big thing, I guess, in terms of range or pricing. I think they get the pricing power there to keep the range the same, but lower prices if they increase battery density.
Right.
And the second thing that was pretty big was the first time that they provide some kind of volume guidance in terms of production.
And Lee was smart enough to buy at $5, if I'm not wrong, 3,000 shares, right?
Yeah.
Good.
I mean, what happened? Why did the stock spike up in the last couple of days?
Well, honestly, I think it's been beaten down so much that it's still underneath the downward trend. We can take a look at that later. I think it was about time for it to spike, but it has to cross $8. Well, we'll talk about that maybe in a different segment, but I don't think we're quite there in terms of saying we're bullish. I don't think we're...
One point I want to make about the MLM is like, there's a real distinction between platform 2 as a platform and the MLM. Like, this is where it did get a little confusing. Like, platform 1 is the skateboard that the FUVs that they sit on, but platform 2 is, he said, it's like the family of products. So Mean Lean Machine is one version of the platform 2 family of products. So they'll sell you like the box, then they'll sell you the wheels, and I'm guessing some kind of frame, and then you can make your configurations. That's where I didn't really understand. And I didn't know that until we spoke to him. When he said that, I'm looking to sell these parts to people. I think we were talking about that on the Discord actually just now, that it's like, it's not really that one product. There's more to it. And that's what I didn't really understand.
Well, I think he wants other people to build his machine too. He didn't clarify it, but I assume it's a licensing deal. That's what I got from it.
That can go one of two ways. Either he's selling them the parts at wholesale, they build their own machines, or he's selling the pieces to make like the fusion drive. That's what I didn't understand.
I don't think he has to sell them anything. I think he provides that they're licensing the ability to make it, and here's the plan. This is how you build an amp. This is how you build an MLM. This is how you build an FUV.
In your guys' interview, it seemed like he kind of stressed how little space it takes in the factory because it's such a small machine, right? Yeah. He was talking that scaling is much easier for a smaller product. So I feel like I kind of got the idea from him that he wanted to scale it almost in-house, but then he did say that like it's almost sounded like a contract manufacturing, like other companies were going to do the bulk of the putting.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I don't get. Like, are they building? Are they helping him build the fusion drives, or is he going to make those and then ship them out so people can build the custom configurable machines, or both? He could actually do both, because that's when he got real emotional, when he was like, "Of course, like I have to give this thing out because we got to get off oil. You know, I can't keep this to myself."
I mean, does it matter either way? Because look, as investors, if he gets more of it out, even in that way, do I care if it's a licensing deal, a contract manufacturer deal? I mean, I don't really care about that. I just want him to get these things, as many of them out as possible.
As many out as possible.
Yeah. So I'm sort of on board on his plan that he doesn't have to build all these factories by himself. I kind of like that.
Well, you know, I don't know if we said this in the podcast, but it's kind of like Coke selling you a can of soda for $1, and then they take the same water, put it in another container that they make the Coke with, and sell it to you for $1 as Dasani. He's doing the same thing. He's selling you the product, and he's also selling you the components of the product.
I'm telling you, it's even better than that. Coke doesn't even give you the water. They don't give you the sugar. They don't give you the bottle. They just give you the
recipe.
They give you the syrup. No, just a little bit of the syrup, and then you have to spend all this money to do everything else. which is maybe what Mark was talking about. And we should clarify with him. We should tweet him and clarify this. This is important.
Isn't
Or
it
like
practically more of an IP company then? Like strictly
sure.
speaking about that aspect. Obviously,
Yeah.
Coke is much more.
I think he's going to have the amps himself, like his own Arcimoto things. Like he'll have his own rental fleet, right? His own rental places. But the objective is not to own all the rental fleets and all the amps. I think he wants to get it out as far as possible. So you can start up a rental place, right? And you can get the majority.
Yeah, it sounds like the franchise model.
Yeah,
He's trying to
that's what it is.
maybe you pay me $100,000, I help you get going, you take all the costs, and then I take a small percentage, and all he does is control the quality. Like it has to be to a certain standard, right? To like the Arcimoto standard. Anything above that, that's what
smart.
it sounds like.
Lee, you don't sound too happy about this model.
Yeah. There are some upside and downsides.
You don't look too happy about it.
Yeah, I'm a little bit tired. No, I guess when you think about the optionality that you get with a franchised model, is that he talked about, for example, of another variant like a 2-people seated LLM or a cargo version, and you get all of these add-ons and yeah, just gadgets that you could add on top of it. And if you do a franchised version, you could maybe also create an option of, hey, create your own add-on, like your own module, and create a new version of this LLM if you need one. I think you're kind of crowdfunding or crowdsourcing some kind of new variants potentially in the future that, while Arcimoto didn't think about them, that would make sense, but someone else did. Hey, let's make it.
Yeah, he keeps talking about the platform is the product, right? So
Yes.
he wants to give you that piece of it, whatever that is. Then you go ahead and skin it. Really, here's your platform. Go do what you want with it. And we want 10%.
Here, check this out. This was this morning on the Discord right here. AJC posted this article.
Hey, my name is Leo Cruces. I'm with Arcimoto. I'm proud to say I was on the design team that created the prototype mean lean machine.
Yo, it looks so good in black. Holy balls. I'm just saying, doesn't it look amazing in black? The other one was silver.
It looks
doesn't it?
nice. I pre-ordered it, by the way, guys. I don't know if you saw that video. It's another product that I have from Arcimoto, so we'll see if I get this
Well,
one.
we both did, so I'm getting mine in black.
Look, it's nice.
Just watch a little bit of it.
So the feeling of riding it, it's very natural, just like a bicycle. You have an enormous amount of stability at high speed and at low speed. A lot of this is imported from the tilting motorwork suspension. So each wheel is equipped with a high torque hub motor. Torque vectoring will allow us to deliver the exact amount of braking force or driving force that each wheel needs as the vehicle adapts to the conditions of the road. This will provide greater stability, shorter stopping distance, better turning, and better acceleration. In terms of traction, your front wheel traction is incredible. I've ridden it on gravel, on wet roads, on bumpy stuff. It filters out everything. You kind of forget that the world is slippery and bumpy. And the feel of pedaling this thing is extraordinary.
Do you also notice how there's no front suspension? They put the center of gravity over the rear wheels, so any movement of the front wheels will still be absorbed by that shock. It's a brilliant design, like a pivot. And did you guys see any brakes? I think he's doing it with torque vectoring. That's what he said. Like, I don't know. How
Isn't that the cable coming down though?
The cable could just be a controller, like it could just be a signal. He's saying torque vectoring allows us to have the braking force. So that means that the motor has to be able to brake. Like it looks like the rear wheel has one right back
maybe
here.
it's like the regen braking that slows you down type of a thing. That's
Maybe they do
possible.
that. You know, kind of like the Cyber-Trike. The pieces are so flat. It's like there's not a lot of machining.
About throttle inputs, I just pedal and it goes. The pedal generator is putting useful energy into the drivetrain. It can also be used in stationary mode to recharge the battery without moving the trike. It's ergonomic, it's stable, there's no learning curve. So this is the version 3 prototype. It is much closer to the final product than our previous two. The final model will have a battery packaged in here. This is just a temporary battery for testing. Drivetrain will be compact and enclosed. There will be options for a double-seater, so you can have a passenger and flip down foot pegs. We've already experimented with this on the V1 and V2. It handles beautifully. So the team at Arcimoto is super excited to bring this to market and deliver an excellent product, unlike anything you've written before. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.
I might be the bear in the group. I don't know.
Let's do it. We need somebody.
Why?
I'm glad it's not me this time.
Well, first of all, I want to interview that guy. Like, that's the guy I'd love to sit down
Yeah.
and do an interview with.
Yes.
I'd love to just ask him some of those really detailed engineering questions about, like, does this thing have brakes? Like, I want to know how
Mark,
that works.
we want an interview with that guy. So
Whoever
make it
that guy
happen.
was, his name is, what's his name? Leo Crucis. Yes. Okay, so you're bearish. What makes you hesitate?
It's not necessarily that I'm bearish that I think it's going to go lower. I just think the stock market, more often than not, they seem to really not like uncertainty. Even when like the Ukrainian war, like the invasion took off, right? Stock market went right back up. It's often the stock market oversells stocks when they're not sure how to value it. And Arcimoto right now, even like the people in the loop, right? Like us four, we're not even really sure what to expect from them, whether they're going to be more of an IP company in regards to that product, how that's going to affect scaling of platform one. It's like, how do you know how to scale it? And generally, whenever that happens for a company, let alone a small company that's very volatile, just intrinsically from the industry, where do you think the stock price will go? And therefore, there's a lot of risk associated, whether it's to the upside, like we've seen in the past few days from 5 to 7, or to the downside from like 7 to 3.
I agree with you there that this year, I keep saying it, even though I like what they're doing, this year, they have to make it through.
Yeah.
And the factory has to be up and running. Because as soon as that happens, I think all of these bear cases, like all what we're talking about, whatever the market, it just won't matter. Because if they're cranking out even 5,000 of these, just do the math. Like, they are going to be so undervalued. And that's why Lee pumped 15,000 into 3,000 shares, because no matter what, if they make it, it's like a gamble, right? You're almost saying black or white. Like, so he went to the roulette table and he's saying, I bet it all on black. That's what you did, Lee. I would say the majority of his bet is probably going to be correct, because I think there's enough money that they can raise to survive. Even though I'm not bullish in terms of this year, meaning I still think it's 2023, I don't think they're going to go bankrupt. Even though that is, I still got to say it's a possibility, obviously. It's not financial advice for anybody, but just I want to make that clear. So I'm not worried about my investment right now. And I do have a lot of shares. And I've said it before, but I have right now 4,000 shares. I want 10,000 by the end of this year, if possible. But the price has to be, like you said, I might be waiting for the $3 to happen. Wall Street doesn't care that if Q4 comes out and they say, we don't have 400 vehicles for you, they're not going to look at this MLM and the pre-orders. They're not going to care about that. They're going to say, tank the stock, right?
The aspect that's most risky for a small company like that we can all acknowledge will need funding in the future, is that if the stock does tank for a prolonged period of time, whether it's like a recession and everything gets shorted, like, where are they going to get that funding? If they do manage to get an ATVM loan, that's excellent. But so far, we haven't seen too much more from that.
Yeah, absolutely agree. We said that in multiple previous videos, they need the ATVM loan. It will be very hard to come up with sufficient amount of money to fund the expansion of the new factory and all the ongoing expenses and potential operational losses that we would expect during the ramp up. I think they could raise some cash, but I doubt that it would be enough to get them really through the next 1 or 2 years until they could become free cash flow positive.
I just want to speak on Mark's behalf, because I feel like if he's watching this, he wants to address the scaling question of Q. We actually did ask him that. We asked him in the video, in the last interview, how much attention from platform one and scaling that is platform two taking, and he says it's very little. It's a smaller machine, takes a lot less to make, much simpler parts, and most of that is happening out of house. So it's not even like it's really making a dent in anything from platform one or platform 1X. And to counter your point, I feel like just looking at that machine has like a standing awe factor to me that the FUV doesn't. The Roadster, maybe. That Roadster, you look at that on the street, you go, man, what is that? You take the name of the company down and you look them up when you go home. This machine has that for me, except it's going to be $3,000 for every, that's like.
Well, we don't know that. I just want to be clear. We don't know if it's 5,000 or 3,000. There's no.
I'm feeling 3,000. I just feel like if it gets any more above that,
they're going to have to 4 or more.
Maybe. I think it's going to be 3, because I think that the price right now is a big barrier to entry to get people to just buy these, right? You might spend 10 grand on something just to see how it goes, but 20,000? No, I don't think so. But if this thing comes in at $3,000, let's just say, and a Roadster's 18, theoretically they could have 6 of these on the road for every Roadster price. That's 6 people in different parts of the country riding these things around, showing it to people. And it's not like on a Roadster, you can't just stop the person on the street, but with the bike, there's a lot more traffic. Hey, what is that? If you're out walking your dog, I just see like that could be a massive hit for these guys, man. Especially when I saw it in black right now. I'm like, oh, I would be like, what is that? I'd buy that for my wife. You know what I mean?
If it's $3,000, maybe 3,500. If it starts to be 5, 6, 7, 8.
No, she'll walk
9,
then. She's
10.
got to get on the bus.
So it really depends what happens.
Tesla.
But I will say, Mark, I don't think he's hiding this, but he is happy with the numbers. And he mentioned that in our podcast. He's happy with the numbers that he has with the pre-orders that are coming in. He didn't give us a number.
But based on the smile?
Based on the smile. We're basing it on smiles now.
He was like, I'm very pleased.
Blink twice.
Right. It sounds like.
So no, I actually like the design a lot. Like, I would like to own this thing. I don't want to own it for $10,000. Don't get me wrong, but if it's around $3,000-4,000. It's
Yeah, I also think that like the timing from development to go to market is very short. Don't you think?
Sandy
Isn't that
Manroe
good?
helped them. Sandy Manroe is on this thing, man.
Yeah.
Sandy Manroe's not messing around.
I'm sure he's helping him, but I'm saying I believe when he says it's an easier device to manufacture. I believe that. The only question is, how many engineers have you taken from platform 1 and put them on this one? That was my only ever bearish.
He said
thing,
it's
like,
mostly happening out of house, right? Tilting Motorworks and or whatever it is, the other companies that are working with him. And he said it several times, Sandy Manroe and Associates. So it's like, it's Sandy Manroe and his team of people putting their minds. And these are guys that tear down Teslas. That's a side project for them to put something like that together. It's probably fun for them. It's a nice, simply engineered machine.
I don't. Yeah, every time someone says simple about engineering, I cringe. I cringe a little.
Some of the challenges are hard, but it's a way
Oh my
simpler
God.
machine than an FUV.
I don't know if you did any numbers, Lee, but I would think that the profitability of this thing would be way more than the FUV.
Yeah, maybe because the battery, as the
Smaller
potentially
battery.
most costly part, is much smaller. There are less parts.
Way less parts, apparently, right? And not even a chain.
We could actually calculate this. He said you could make 8 Arcimotos for the same amount of material it takes to make one Hummer. And did he say you could make 80
Yeah,
MLMs?
something like that. Yeah.
All right, so then that means the MLM is a 10x reduction in parts to one FUV.
Right. And if his
An
gross
FUV.
margin is still the same or more, as investors, I don't know if you guys care, but I don't care what he sells. At the end of the day, if he sells a billion of these bikes or a billion of deliverators,
Right.
whatever. So I actually think this is a
Whatever
good
works.
product. Whatever works. I do believe the deliberator is a great product. Don't get me wrong. But if he can do what he says, and 2022, he said end of 2022.
Yeah.
Let's see if he can keep that
We're
promise.
gonna see a prototype.
People are supposed to get it. He said we're going to start delivering this end of 2022, right?
The
Am I
design,
wrong
we
in
still
that?
have to see the final design. That's not the final design.
I know,
That
but we bought Teslas without seeing a final Tesla. So
Yeah.
I mean, people are buying bikes for 10 grand. Even on our Discord, they're saying I've bought an e-bike for $10,000. So I could see 50,000 of these going out the door. Not 2022. I'm just saying I could see that happening.
Well, if he's smart, he's going to get this thing out in October, November, because you want to hit that Christmas
Oh yeah, that'd be amazing.
bump. You have to get this out September, October, finish the design in the summer, get people excited when they can start riding it, and then they go, man, for Christmas, I'm picking up.
We have to wait. I agree with you, Q. Totally bearish until something starts going out the door, basically. Until
Man, I don't know, man. That machine is sweet. They should call it the sweet lean machine or
no,
something.
Cyber-Trike, right?
Well, Cyber-Trike would be ideal, yeah. But
I've noticed they're trying to avoid the word like trike. I feel like whenever they have a press release or an article or a title about it, it's always like 3-wheeled bike. It's like they're just trying to stay away from the word trike.
right. Maybe.
Well, trikes are like for little kids, right? That's what
Yeah, I know. I think that's why they're kind of like.
I'm okay with that. I mean lean machine is too long. MLM is multi-level marketing, so there's already it's already an acronym that's taken, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I really do like Cyber-Trike, and I'm an idiot. I should have said this on the podcast. You have a thing called the Roadster, and Tesla has a Roadster. You literally have the
Oh.
same name. So why
that's a
can't you
good
use
point.
Cyber-Trike?
That's a good point. I
Like,
didn't
why
even think
not?
of that.
Because I don't know why that would be an issue or a barrier. I just think it would sell
Yeah.
more of them, honestly.
It would sell more of them. In fact, if they confuse you for Tesla, you'll sell more of them.
Right. There's a lot worse things. Is that the Mini Mach E? Whoa.
These are the numbers now, and you guys see this, right?
Yeah.
And we did confirm with Mark. He basically said we expect to hit 4 digits in 2022 in terms of FUVs. Not counting whatever the mean lean machine numbers are. We can talk about that too. That means around 1,000. I don't know what you have in your numbers right now, Lee, but then
Yep.
7,000 in 2023. So I figure we discussed that a bit. If you have some numbers to share, I'd like to see what you actually have. Are you using his 1K basically? Or
Yes, roughly. I think there's no way that they hit something like way over 100 production in Q4. So they will be way below 400. I think we talked about that in our
we
last
did.
video.
Yeah.
So roughly 3 times and some wiggle room for error, right? We are at around 1,000. I mean, that's already $24 million in estimated revenue, right? So that's not that bad. And also accounting for a couple of hundred going to rentals, essentially.
You didn't add, by the way, the mean lean machine yet, right?
No. That's all upside. I
That's
mean,
right,
when he's
yeah.
telling us in Q4 they're starting deliveries or production, I mean, could as well be pushed to Q1 2023, right?
And let's face it, it might actually happen that way.
Yeah, I wouldn't put that
I'm not.
already.
No, I'm
That's
not doubting
upside.
him, man. I'm not doubting him. Also because he understands what the impact is if you miss. Like you saw Lucid Motors. Lucid Motors just said we're not going to do 20,000. We're going to do 12. The stock just fell like an anchor. So I think he's careful. He might actually be underestimating.
Well, he wasn't
publicly.
underestimating last year, 2021, when he told us 500. If you still, the problem this year is that he said 500, and then even Wall Street had a number in mind for how much they would make, and that's why the stock took a heavy dip Q3 because he missed his numbers, and then Q4 now just is like he's going to miss his numbers again. So to Q's point, that's one reason I'm bearish short term. Even if the stock pumps right now, I don't think it's a lasting pump because as soon as the numbers come out, and if we're at war, there's just a lot of negatives. I believe the positives come, let's say August, September, October. There are positives coming, but I think
When
in
is
the
their
interim,
earnings? When's their next earnings?
It's March, April. It's at the end of March, beginning of April.
That's just a rough framework, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes,
they're
yes,
going
yes.
to roughly triple this year compared to 2021 and roughly 7x the year after. So it would be a little bit better than that. But hey, that's already like way over 100 million in revenue.
The factory cost is still over 100 million. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So-
I assume that. We don't have official guidance, but I would assume that.
Well,
cost
that's
to be
for the
over-
ramp of what? That's for the ramp, just to be clear, 50,000 vehicles. How much does he need, do you think, for the ramp of 1,000 vehicles and then 7,000 vehicles? Because he could do this in stages.
We don't have this piece of information at all. Like,
Can you estimate? Is
super hard
it
to
like
say.
50 million? Is it 30 million?
I don't understand your question. He's building the factory that it'll have a capacity of 50,000, even if it's only ramping 7. It's
No.
not like-
Year 1, year 2,
Yeah.
he will not
The
have that
cash
capacity.
out-
He will not
Yeah,
have
the
that. He will
cash-
not have the machines even.
Yeah, right. So the cash out isn't all like in
Not
one
that-
year. He can spread it out over like
over a
3
couple.
years.
Right. Okay. So it's going to be an ongoing
Yeah.
expansion. Okay. The other part of it is if you look at the state of the factory, I think they had a side by side at the event. You saw what it looks like now. Some of that cost is like the grounds and it's not all. Where was that?
Are you talking about this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all the money's going inside this window right here, inside this box. All the stuff that's outside is solar panels on the roof or whatever they got. That could they
Well,
don't
this
have
is
to-
this is the way it's supposed to look at the end
right.
of the day.
That's some of the money is all that stuff, the trees, the the terraforming the land, the concrete.
Yeah.
So
Mark,
they're
there
gonna
is no
focus
money
on-
for trees. Forget about it.
Right. Just put it all inside.
You got too many trees here, Mark.
So I feel like that's not something we're going to see for a few years. It's all going to be going inside. It should stay like this, right? Just stay
It
like
should
this.
stay like this.
And have beautiful machines coming out of that thing.
Well, yeah, I think it's a process because I originally thought like they need 100 million this year or next year to go to build everything. But now I'm thinking, well, maybe they need more like 30 million. They don't need 100 million.
Right.
So that's a big difference because they can raise that.
Yeah.
And the ATVM loan can help with that. Whatever. And the bond market, I think you mentioned something else, going to a different route. You mentioned a couple of ways they can do this. So I don't think it's as dire as I probably thought in Q3 of 2021. I'm actually thinking it's a lot more possible now, even though it's going to be rough. I'm not saying it's not going to be rough. I just think it's a little more possible than I thought in Q3 of 2021.
Well, that's for CapEx, but they are going to have operational losses on top of that. So
Right.
they need to come up for that as well. So
What do you think that's going to
maybe-
be? Like how much operating loss?
that's also a very good question and unknown. That depends on gross margins. I would say that they could easily burn something like 15-20 million per quarter. So between 50 and 80-ish million for the year. They are already at like 10 million per quarter, and they kind of offset that last year with a couple of shares issued in each quarter, like 1 million, 2 million shares issued, so a little bit, not that many. I think losses will increase over time during the ramp up.
So let's say they sell 500 go out the door as free, right? Because we're assuming 1,000. I'm assuming they're going to seed the network of their even rental partners. They have to do that. If they sell 500, doesn't that offset, even though we know they're losing money, but the operational losses?
Yes.
Doesn't that bring that amount down?
As long as margins are negative, as long as that's the case, the less they sell, the better for their.
Oh, so you're saying don't sell the 1,000.
But he said specifically.
They need to get to the break-even point as quickly as possible. And at this point in time, it makes sense to sell more. But it doesn't make sense to kind of try to sell 50 or let's say 200 instead of 50 or 100 if they still make losses. Their losses will just widen, right? Financially. Marketing-wise, obviously, every vehicle on the road counts.
But also, he did say, with respect to like the autonomous companies or the fleets, they're buying them. They're not giving them away.
No, he didn't. No, he said we plan on selling them, but we asked about the faction thing. Are you selling it to faction?
Yeah.
And just to be clear, let me show at least what I'm sure everybody knows by now, but this is the autonomous faction vehicle. And we asked, are you selling those vehicles so they build out their own thing? And he said, we haven't discussed that, but the plan is to sell them to as many people as possible. So he might have a deal that he did not make any money on the 3 he gave to faction.
Let's see what he said.
Put our stuff on top of either platform 1 or platform 2.
Are you providing these vehicles for free to faction, or they have to buy the vehicles, or some sort of split is happening?
We haven't talked about the nature of that business deal, but ultimately we want to make money off the platforms that we build. People, like, when they're just like, oh, what's the market for this? Like, do you know how big the vehicle market is? And also, we're aiming for 80% of that market. Anyway.
That was the mic drop moment of the thing. So he said his exact words were, we don't want to talk about the nature of that. So he has a deal with them. He's just not telling us what that deal is. And then he says,
but it sounds like he gave it to them for free. It sounds like these vehicles are provided for them to do what they need to. They're not paying for them.
Really? That's how
That's what that sounds like to me.
I didn't take that way. I took it as.
What do you guys think?
You think he's giving these machines to these guys?
I'm not entirely sure. I think that if they are selling them, I think it's not going to be for full price. Because it's very much kind of up in the air. It's like, we'll see if this works. There's no point for like a larger company to be willing to put down more money than it would take like Arcimoto to be willing to take a step into a partnership.
And remember, he has to prove this whole robo-valet autonomy thing, and he's trying to use them as a platform to do this without spending the resources himself. So it even makes sense that he would invest at least the vehicle. Like, that even makes sense financially, honestly.
Okay, I don't know. I didn't necessarily take it that way, but I can see your point that he would just give it to them because there's a benefit in it for him that's more than the money.
If they work out the 40, 50,000 he lost, he's like nothing.
He's on stage in a month talking about robo.
He's talking about we have autonomy, right? So
in the future, at least the way I see it, he would work some sort of a model where I'll give you the vehicle, but I'm going to take a larger share of the revenue that it makes until it's paid, and then take a residual for life. So I give it to you now, and we start getting recurring revenue, say 50% of the return, whatever it is. But I can see a deal working like that to just blend the cost of the machine, gets rid of that for a company that wants to buy 10 of them, let's say, right?
So Q, so obviously after this Mean Lean Machine event and 222, you did not buy any shares. You're still out of the game here.
No, I'm almost kind of scared for the automotive market. You know, I think like if you look at valuations, and obviously this is apples to oranges, like of a GM and a Ford, and you can see that clearly like the automotive market isn't like the highest margin, most profitable industry out there. And I think with that said here, if I can share my screen or something.
Yeah, I think he's heading to the answer. I didn't buy any shares.
I did not buy any shares. But like you're taking a look at this graph, right?
Okay.
This is the price of nickel. Here, if I can give you a full screen.
I saw this.
This is nickel. Like the UK ended up.
It's a vertical.
Yeah, it's not pretty. Let's put it that way.
Crazy.
And this is just nickel. I mean, if we take a look at copper.
Well, hold on. Before you even leave the nickel thing, this is a temporary thing that is going on right now. This is not going to last. And anyone who is in the vehicle business right this second, I would assume, has 5-10 year contracts built in getting nickel.
Yeah, and
Like
they've
even
got a
Arcimoto
surprise on
probably
hand.
has their battery business like built in at this point, like how many batteries are coming in. So this is a problem if this lasts a year or two, but I think for all the companies like Tesla and Arcimoto, I think they already got their contracts. That was already vertical. We get it.
Yeah, I mean,
It
copper's
broke the
basically,
chart. It literally broke the chart.
yeah.
It's
But, like,
unsustainable. That's unsustainable.
yeah, for sure, for sure. But you have copper as well, right?
Yeah.
Like copper, new all-time highs, literally all-time highs for copper. Same thing for like lithium carbonate. So all the manufacturing components that go into building an electric vehicle, they're going up exponentially as well. It's not just oil is going up, making it hard for Ford to sell their F-150s. Now it's also like electric vehicles. There's going to be a big like issue, and every company trying to transition, whether it's Ford, GM, Toyota, they're going to have more like hitting power. They're going to have more priority to get those materials. So I think now it's going to be like scavenging to find different partners and probably giving up some margin to just try to survive this time. And of course, it's going to be like temporary, transitory if you want, but like how long?
Only
And
5
if it's
years.
1, 2, 3 years. Are they going to be able to last that long if they have to drop their margins and their like operating margins or their operating losses are still up there? So that's it for me. It's I have to see production and I have to see execution.
It's just a counterpoint to that. I was reading something along those lines of that same article. The increase in price in what was that? That was cobalt? What was
Nickel.
that? In nickel. Okay. If I'm remembering correctly, that increase has only raised the price, the cost of a Model Y to Tesla, $1,400. So you're looking at a $70,000 vehicle, and the price to Tesla has gone up $1,400. That's for one Model Y.
They have already production that they paid
Yes.
for.
Yes.
Nothing has increased for them at this point.
Right. At this point, no, right? Because they have grandfathered in deals and they're sitting on a pile of this stuff. If that's the effect on Tesla, you'd say one of the biggest companies that should be affected the most. Arcimoto's battery needs are way, way less. So a Tesla is the Model Y right now is 75 kilowatt hours. So 75 kilowatt hours translates to a $1,400 price increase, but the Arcimoto is 19 kilowatt. You're right. So yeah, you're right.
So it's
you
around a
could-
quarter.
Yeah, so around a quarter. So that means that 1,400, right, divided by 4. 1,400 divided
14
by
million. No, that was 14 million.
1,400 divided by 4, 350.
Boom
good
for
job.
the win.
All right, so it raises the price of an Arcimoto at 350. Now, granted, there's other products, copper and all this stuff, but let's just say it raises the price of an Arcimoto cost to them $800.
I'm gonna kind of make
That's
a quick little
terrible. That would be
counterpoint.
terrible if that happened.
It's that Tesla like was very forward looking, right? Not just in like actually just manufacturing EVs, but in
Yeah.
terms of like seeing supply and where it was going to go. They went ahead, and this one's much more recent, right? With Talon Metals, for example, they're looking at more sustainable ways of mining nickel, but even like back in the day, and this one's still very recent, but they've been securing contracts very far out for the metals that they're going to need, whether it's nickel or lithium or even like graphite. Right? They've been making these partnerships much sooner and earlier than any other company. And that's kind of one of the biggest things about Tesla. It's that not only did they bet on electric vehicles being the future, but they like doubled down to the point where they were willing to make 5-year contracts for battery cells or like different metals. So their prices are going to be affected a lot less than other companies. And I think that's my biggest point, that I believe that Tesla is going to cannibalize sales for a lot of other companies. So I think really the only thing that can save Arcimoto is like the niche market. The fact that it's 3 wheels and they're not directly competing with Tesla.
No, you have a valid point. And the thing is, we actually don't know if Mark thought ahead like Elon did and secured 5-year contracts. We don't have that information, right?
I think it's very hard also to secure those contracts
Right.
if
He
you're
doesn't
like a
have the
startup
cash.
company. You're like, who
doesn't-
are you?
right.
He might have the capacity for this year, and then next year he could be totally screwed in terms of the price.
Yeah.
We don't know.
But look,
And-
what we're talking about here is 1,000 vehicles now and then 7,000 vehicles. So it's not like he needs to scale this thing up forever. He's looking to just get enough for 8,000 vehicles, like 1,000
I
this
know it's
year
like
and
nothing
7
almost. But to his gross margin point, if you take away $1,000 on top of this, that's bad.
It's
Yeah,
bad,
but-
but again, we don't know what it actually is. You know?
The biggest thing for Arcimoto, like why I think they're going to be hit pretty hard as well, is that already they're selling these vehicles like at a loss, and they have to drop the price considerably, right? Most people are expecting like somewhere along the lines of a $12,000 to $14,000 Arcimoto, and if you have to drop the price as the components to manufacture a vehicle keep going up, and like we saw that nickel graph obviously that's unsustainable, but who knows that it won't go like keep going higher for a while, or maybe even like stagnate for a few years. If that's the case and they run out of reserves, then they have to start buying it at market price. That's just an added risk that I'm not willing to buy shares until I see production and execution.
A very valid point.
Not that they're not executing. I don't want to be like,
Yeah.
mean. I just want like to see a further ramp up to real and like large numbers.
Honestly, you have a valid point. It's a great case for the bears that if nickel does not go down and the world doesn't return to some normalcy and the war continues, like there's a lot of unknowns. So I agree with you there. But also the opportunity is in the unknowns. If we knew all of these things, then maybe the stock price would be $15, right? So
yeah.
And remember, the market cap currently is still 230 million, 250 million. So even if it went to $7, you're still talking about they're being valued like they're failing, I think.
I'm doing some quick math, right? 75 kilowatt hour battery in the Model Y divided by 19.2, the kilowatt hours of the Arcimoto, and we get 3.9. Basically, for every Model Y, you can make almost 4 FUVs. What I'm trying to figure out is how many vehicles is this going to be spread across? It might be more because like you said, if the batteries are more efficient, it's going to weigh the same because he's going to ballast it, but it might only have a 15 kilowatt hour battery to get the same range with just some extra weights. So they could be spreading this cost out more. But you're right. If they're not making money on it, it's not good. But I don't think it's going to be like the thing that kills them is the price of nickel, Yeah.
It would just be cash burn in general, not specifically nickel.
Right.
Are you buying Tesla? I'm just curious.
Yeah. My thing with Tesla is that I think they'll be hit, short term. It's going to apply to them as well, but I think they're in such a good place in terms of the industry. Like they can swing around their name and get big contracts. So
it's not their name they're swinging around.
Yeah, I was actually about to say something.
You were thinking the same thing.
I was like, it's a podcast.
The moment I said that.
Okay, you got to keep that in. Okay.
Like if Tesla
He's lost track. That's it.
Oh no! All right. So if they're swinging it around,
give me a second. Reset, reload.
Sorry.
Yeah, if Tesla is going to be hit and like pretty hard potentially, other automakers then are worse positioned and haven't made those contracts for lithium, nickel, copper many years out, especially like battery cells, for example, they're going to be hit even harder. And the automotive market's not just going to vanish in a few years. So there's going to need to be somebody to fill that space. So I think it's going to create a vacuum that's going to help Tesla, maintain their current growth rate for many years out. So it's not that I'm bearish on Arcimoto, it's that I just think in terms of shorter term, like a few years, 2, 3, maybe even 5, there's an opportunity cost in terms of like, if I get in at 5 and it goes to 3, maybe I get in to Tesla at 800 and it remains at 800. There's an opportunity cost and like the risk, the added risks that we're seeing come in with just like the general global economy, it's just making it a little bit harder to sell to me.
If nickel and all the metals that they need for batteries continue to be a problem, I would think China and the Chinese companies would actually do better. NIO XPENG, they could bring their cars here and have cheaper ways to manufacture because they have the deals with the government to get cheap metals.
No, I know if all China fears aside and the whole even like Russia-Ukraine thing, I think puts China in like a worse spot. I would buy a BYD like that.
Who's actually hurt by oil? We who drive gas cars. Yeah. The people who produce the oil in Saudi Arabia, wherever they're producing it, they're kind of happy oil is high. Fine. You know what I mean? So the same thing for China. Are they actually upset that metal prices are going up when they're the ones selling all these heavy metals to us? I don't know. I don't think they're that upset. And as we know, NIO has a deal with the Chinese government. They're producing what's the factory called? JAK? The factory? It's a Chinese Communist Party factory. They might actually do really, really well. That's what I'm thinking. I got to buy some NIO. And BYD.
I'll make a counterpoint or something that could buoy this issue with nickel. The reason why Tesla traded at such a high valuation for a while for a car company is because retail investors like us knew that it wasn't a car company. We knew this is not a car company. This is a software company. It's an AI company. It's this. And slowly, as Wall Street's coming around to maybe accepting it, that they're not just that's why you're seeing these massive valuations. Mark is being really clear that he wants to be considered an autonomy rideshare business. He's screaming at it. He's screaming it from the top of the mountain, and the Wall Street is not pricing that in. They're just seeing them as a car company or like a micro mobility vehicle company that sells these vehicles to customers, right? But what happens if one of these autonomous companies, whether it's Faction or whatever, those companies are also starting to mature. And his goal is to be the primary supplier of vehicles to those companies to prove their products. What happens when one of these companies makes it and they have Arcimoto as the platform? What happens, or if it's Arcimoto themselves? Wall Street is not pricing in any revenue from a robo-taxi or rideshare or even robo-valet at all.
I don't think we are too, to be honest.
No, I'm not pricing it in, but I'm saying that's affecting my decision. That's why the current market cap is 200. Yeah. I'm like, dude, if you think it's just this and he's telling you where he wants it to go, he knows that Tesla's going there anyway. So there's going to be a point when Tesla starts to do its robo thing, right? And again, Wall Street's going to feel like we missed out on that. Where's the next one? The only one that I know next in line is Arcimoto that is stating that that's either their goal or their mission. So that disconnect, even in terms of what the company does, is I think a great opportunity, which if what you're focused on is the stock price more than say like the fundamentals of the company, how is this company going to stay at 200 million if you suddenly add on another piece to their definition? You have to price some of that in.
Well, I think the reason that I almost don't have to price it in, and I know that's like immediately almost an argument, it's that I don't think I'll miss the train if I'm paying attention to production numbers, because if they're not working on self-driving in-house or the robo valet, then like the real factor, it's one, the partnership, but then two, really production, because the only way that they're going to be able to monetize is having a lot of units, a lot of production units to just like flip that switch, like Tesla's likely going to be able to do in a few years with full self-driving, and then like kind of start monetizing active already like units on the road. So I think just paying attention to production numbers, but that's why I don't think I'll miss the train if I'm just paying attention.
No, he's being a smart investor, unlike all of us three. He's saying
trust me, no.
He's basically saying, look, I'll wait till they sell 7,000 of these and the price will be $15. Who cares? Because the ride from 15 to 150 is a similar ride to your 7 to 150. That's what he's saying. And he's not wrong.
No, you're not wrong. So what happens if they produce 1,000 vehicles this year and 20 of them start to produce more revenue than what the cost of the vehicle was? If you're a smart guy, you go, holy, okay, so out of this 1,000.
Well, that's not happening 2022, though. That's not happening.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying if they can prove the concept, someone's got to look to that and say, so that means the price of this vehicle or like the revenue that I expect is not going to come from production sales. It's going to come from what is the revenue that this thing generates. So at 7,000 vehicles, you're calculating how much the sales are on that. It could be the same as selling 15,000 vehicles, right? And then you go, oh my God, this is, they're just printing money. These machines are just printing money. And the question that I had I wish I would have asked this is MLM I didn't see anything to control steering, right? So how does that machine work autonomously? Are you sitting there while the handlebars are moving? I don't know. I didn't understand.
I don't know if the MLM was meant for that. Was it?
It works with hub motors is what I saw on the website. So hub motors, if you do have torque vectoring, you can simply spin one wheel faster than the other. So just like tilting, you could have it like basically either through software, clever engineering, like increasing the torque that's basically going into each motor to turn.
But has he specifically said that this is, I know it's going to the rental market, but is this part of what he's considering robo valet? Like, can I order one of these? I can understand the FUV. It's going to drive itself, but the MLM driving itself?
It's just an assistant motor, right?
The motor's doing all the work all the time. You're just pedaling to generate.
No, he has a point. Maybe you do have to pedal to actually even move it, right? That's what you're saying?
I don't think so. Do you have to?
Yeah, because usually e-bikes, you have to pedal. It's just supportive. Like when you go uphill, the motor supports you.
But that's because the motors are attached to a chain. Like this pedal is an alternator. It is not actually driving the wheels.
Yeah, but the rules of bikes, if they're going after that, probably means you have to pedal. If
it's going to be a bike. Question actually to Mark. Like, do we have to pedal?
I don't want to pedal, Mark. I'm lazy.
The motors on the MLM are on the wheels. From how I understand an e-bike, the motor is on the gear. So the motor is turning along with you, right? And it's aiding your assist, and the power is going to the wheels via a chain. You're not actually driving any power to the rear wheels or the front wheels. You're just pedaling as an alternator and as a way of accelerating. The wheels are directly connected to the motors at all times.
This is a good question for Mark.
Carlos's point is just that like you're just generating extra electricity, and potentially you're also telling like how fast you want to go. Software, just like through how much output you have. It's like, oh, he wants to go faster. You know, so I don't think there's actually any like direct, like, oh, I'm pedaling this fast, it'll make the bike go this fast in terms of energy output.
Right.
But I do think the range is going to be like take quite a hit if the pedaling is kind of just like taken out. Because I think he said on your podcast that like with 2 extra packs, 2 auxiliary battery packs, which are pretty small, you can get about 200 miles. I think that's what he said. So if you take out pedaling for like 200 miles of that thing going, like, I think it's going to take a pretty big hit.
If you take out the 2 battery packs, then each battery pack's giving you about 66 miles. Listen, 66 miles? I think, what's the range of an Arcimoto? 70 miles? FUV?
Then the question is,
That's
how
great.
much of that is pedaling? You know, like how much are you supplementing to the battery pack?
Oh, right. So say it's like 50, you're saying like it's 50 actual miles and then you get the extra 16 miles or so.
Like, I don't know.
Along with. I don't know, but okay. But even 50 miles.
Even if you get with 1 pack like 20, 30 miles without pedaling, that's already great, right?
And US e-bike sales per units, 2021 was apparently, what is that? Is that 1 million? Yeah, that's 1 million bikes. So I think he's trying to hit, because why would they show this? He's just trying to hit the e-bike market, not the autonomy part of this that we're discussing.
1% of a million. If he sold just that, was that 10,000? 1%? I mean, if he sold 10,000 of these things, that's unreal, and that's 1%.
This is very simple modeling. It's the same thing I showed you guys many moons ago, probably last year. I just updated it a bit. And just to go over it, current shares is 37.66 million. I'm assuming post 2023 we actually have 60 million still. Price per product, 20,000 goes to 15,000 in 2023. Post whatever that is, 2024, 2025. MLM, I'm including it that it starts at 4,500 this year, and then goes to 3,500. Okay. I'm not actually assuming 2,000 for a while. I think Mark said he's aiming for $2,000, but I don't know when it's gonna happen. So I'm counting the vehicles. This is what I'm actually assuming might happen this year. 1,000. Am I being overly bullish here? Am I the bullish?
I don't think so.
I'm assuming 1,000 MLMs 2022. If they are simple to produce, because he's making 1,000 Arcimotos and maybe a little bit more. I put like the original facility might still be making something. We don't have that answer. That's another question you could write down. Is the original AMP facility making anything anymore? What is it doing?
Right.
So 1,000, 1,050. You had 1,070, Lee. 2023, 7,000. And then I'm saying they could ramp it to 10,000. And I could see 10,000 being bought like in a heartbeat. Me and Carlos have ordered. This is the first thing me and him have ordered together.
That's what I'm saying. The 2 of us on this call are like, they're not going to sell more than 1,000. There's 2 of us who big and just ordered it.
If the price is right, I'm willing to buy the thing. If it's $10,000, obviously, that's a little bit crazy.
I don't know. Yeah, if it's 10 grand.
So let me go to the numbers. We end up with some math here. At the end of it, 2022, using my numbers for a $4,500 product in 2022. In 2023, we're going a little bit lower, okay? Just so you know. So 2022, we have 20 million approximately in total revenue, and that jumps up pretty far to 140 million total revenue with the MLM in 2023. Price of sales, I don't like the 60. I'm dropping it from 20 to 10. And do you guys agree on that or no? I think there was a problem there last time too. You believe that it won't drop this fast.
Yeah, super hard to tell like the multiples, how they evolve over time. Certainly 10 for such a rapidly growing company isn't unreasonable. Like
that's where I end up.
It could also be 20. Like with 10, you're pretty conservative.
Well, right now it's, I think, what is it right now? 30, 40, 50? Somewhere around there, right?
Yeah, but it also doesn't make sense right now, right?
Yeah,
that's true.
Really
so,
meaningful production.
I mean, if you look at my 2021, to your point, it's worth $3 if you're doing a 20 times multiple here. But I'm just going to go skip ahead all of this. And let's just go straight to the end, okay? Yeah. And this is going to be for our Patreons. And Lee has a Patreon. I don't know, Q, do you have a Patreon too now?
No.
It's time to get one. Q's getting a Patreon too. Everybody subscribe there as well. But basically, by the end of 2025 or so, right, I expect, and this is past 2025, I'm assuming, but 2025, if they're worth 7 billion, even assuming the 60 million shares, I have $124 a share. And this is later, past 2025, assuming it's still growing, and they're hitting their max capacity for the 50,000 vehicles and all. Right. I think I added more MLMs. How much did I add? This is my max. 50,000 first ramp, 2,500 in the second amp, I'm considering. 100,000 by 2026 and on. That's what I'm assuming, okay? 10%.
But it's also 1/10 of the materials to make an FUV.
Right, but I'm
So-
talking about the e-bike market. So let's assume
Yeah, but I'm
5,
just
6,
saying
7 years
generally.
from now.
Yes, yes. You're saying that for the demand side. Yes, on the demand side,
Yeah.
it's if it's 1 million last year, it should continue to go up.
6,
But
7
also-
years from now, this is basically that. This is
Yeah.
like further in the future. I have like $191 stock price, assuming 60 million shares, not the 37 right now, and it could be 100 million. Honestly, we don't know, so it's still an estimate. Look at these returns; they just explode. Isn't this why we're investing in FUV? That this is a possibility.
This is what it is. That's the disconnect between people what they think it is now and where he's saying he wants to go.
And Lee, disagreement here, because I know you've done your own calculations. Is this like totally off base?
Yeah, I think over time in 2025 and beyond, I think the price to sales multiple could be lower at this point in time because growth could be slowing down or start slowing down. Depends also on their international expansion. We don't know that yet. That will kick in obviously in 2 or 3 years and boost growth and sustain growth over time. But I think anything
So
between
here, I have this here. I have 5. 5 is still $95.
Yeah, that's more reasonable, I think.
So that's a $100
really
stock
conservative
price.
case. Yeah.
It's $7. I'm just pointing out that
Right.
that no matter which one, as long as they survive, this is the big if. They have to survive. They can't be dead. They can't be bankrupt. They have to be producing these things. I don't know. I think it's
Hold on a minute. Look, if Wall Street Bets got together and saved Hertz, let's be honest. If something happened and they were like, "Oh my God, we're gonna fold the company," there'll be a GoFundMe the next day, and they'll make 50 million. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that the money is going to be a problem. And Mark's even said it's going to be chopped for the next few years. I can't see him not having a plan as to how they keep the company afloat, especially if you feel like you're so close. Like, it reminds me of when Elon Musk was trying to ramp the Model 3 and they were like a month from being broke. And he's like, if we just, we start making money, I feel like he's in that same mode and he'll figure it out, man. He'll figure it out. That fear of them not making it is great to keep the price low as far as I'm concerned. Because there's a lot of short interest and those shorts, the people shorting it now.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be at around 40% of float. So that's insane.
That's crazy.
42% actually.
it used to be 40, now it's 42.
Okay, I mean, that's so high.
I'm the only one not shorting. I'm not. I gotta lease out my shares too. Apparently, this is crazy.
Right? Yeah, people want them. Apparently,
43%.
Wow, dude, look at that. Damn.
That's February 14th. The stock has gone up a little bit now, so maybe it's less. Maybe it's 30s.
Yeah.
Let me look it up.
I think that's probably why we got such an aggressive move.
It could
Right?
be.
Yeah, maybe.
They're
If we
covering.
went from 5 to 7. That's a 40% move.
Float 38%.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that can change, though, if you want to make a prediction, if Mark tells us he sold over 5,000 MLMs, maybe that might change something.
If he has as many pre-orders for MLMs as it took 4 years of FUVs, you gotta, even if you don't like the machine, whatever, you gotta admit this is a hit. This machine's gonna be a hit.
Do they have that 5,000 I'm saying that I think is actually going to happen? And will Mark tell us?
He'll never tell us that.
We'll never know anything that happens until I see an FUV drive by my house.
Right, right. When the Domino's pizza comes in, that's when you know it's time to sell. We made it, guys.
Yeah. When my mom calls me up, hey, have you heard of this FUV thing?
Right. You're like, oh, hold on, I gotta sell.
I think 5,000 sounds like a lot to me, but I mean, it's entirely possible. I feel like looking at probably the views of the YouTube video, see how much traction that video actually got.
I think they had 50, 60,000 people. Their most watched video.
Yeah,
that's pretty strong. I mean, it wouldn't be too surprising if a lot of even investors, I mean, like yourself, just decided to kind of support the company, at least just putting in a pre-order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if 10% did those, then it's at least 1,000 of them, I think.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of thousands are not that unreasonable to assume. If you just see I think the reception was very positive from investors and early customers of the FUV. And so just maybe we could do an experiment. You two guys have the FUV on pre-order. You have the MLM on pre-order.
Yeah.
If you had to choose between one of them, which one would you pick?
I'd pick the FUV.
I'd go with the FUV for sure.
I haven't pre-ordered an FUV. I still would probably take the MLM, to be honest.
All right. I'm asking because, the number of pre-orders for the MLM would be interesting, but is this a cannibalization risk to the platform one?
No, I don't think so at all.
I don't think so. America's best-selling electric vehicles ride on 2 wheels. Import data shows e-bikes outpacing electric cars in 2021. The U.S. electric bike market continues to boom as the latest figures from the Light Electric Vehicle Association. The U.S. imported nearly 790,000 two-wheelers in 2021, up from 463,000. Americans bought 625,000 electric cars in 2021, but 790,000 electric vehicles. E-bikes versus EVs, 2019 vehicles. So these are the e-bikes. Okay, so these are EVs, e-bikes. Look at this. In 2020, it changed, and in 2021, it's still the same spread, but they're both increasing. Comprehensive sales data on e-bikes are hard to get. Shows e-bikes sales continuing to rise in 2021. Blah blah blah.
Well, let's face it. As everything goes electrified, it makes sense that the bike goes electric. So everyone who has a bike, I'm not saying they'll buy an MLM eventually, but they're going to buy an e-bike eventually. That's what's going to happen.
But look what it says here. Since nearly all e-bikes sold in the US are imported and most retailers are sending inventory as fast as they can, the import number is as good as it stands for sales. These bikes, these MLMs aren't imported. This is built right here. So they should have some pricing leverage against the ones that are coming in.
I don't know if you guys have heard of like NIO, ticker symbol NIU. Right? They sell basically electric mopeds. And we know that in China, for example, it's very popular because like super crowded, you know, it's just an easy way to get around. Now this stock, like it dropped pretty hard because basically they missed their earnings goal. And I want to point that out because like their year over year sales increased 58.3%. They sold in Q4 over 238,000.
Dude, that's insane.
Right? That's insane. But then you take a look at the stock, that's a $700 million market cap. And to be clear, obviously it's like a China name, so it's going to have all the risks that we associate with like a NIO and XPENG potentially getting delisted. But seeing that the market cap is so small, despite, I mean, nearly 60% growth year over year and 240,000 units in one quarter, that's like practically 1 million units run rate, right?
But that's just because there's not a lot of money in them like that. They're not, you know, how many of those do they have to sell to equal the price of one Model Y, you know? They're not, they're just,
well, he's comparing it to Arcimoto.
Yeah, and the mean lean machine. As Vitaly was saying earlier, it's that a company, it doesn't really matter what they sell, right? It's kind of just like the margins. And at the end of the day, at least the long-term goal is basically the dividend and how much that pays you. Obviously here, we're like not talking about a dividend player at all. That's kind of just like what the stock market's based on. So really, I think it's going to come down to profitability and the margins on those vehicles.
But let's end it on this, on a positive note, because you did spend a lot of money. You did spend a lot of money on a lot of shares. Are you still bullish about it? Because you look, you look tired. That's number one. Number two, are you still bullish or you're just tired? Which one is it?
Both. No, I'm pretty bullish. I was slightly disappointed from the event. I would have expected some like huge bombshell that no one expected, like a Mahindra collab, like an update on the ATVM, like just something that everyone goes, whoa, that's insane, but it didn't happen. Doesn't mean that it won't happen anytime soon. But I'm still bullish, like they're on track with the build out of the factory, and that's what counts to me, right? And they now need to ramp it up. And that's a big question mark if there are going to be any delays. How will they get their funding? These are risks and question marks, clearly.
Well, do you not think that that's stuff that he would talk about on the earnings call versus an event like that?
Yeah, maybe we get some positive note there on the earnings call. Yeah,
I mean, that's what I thought. I thought he wanted to keep it positive and just not take anything away from the introduction of Platform 2 and the MLM, and then the earnings call or that shareholder thing he'll do like a day before. I think he'll get into all that stuff then.
Well, that wasn't positive. It sounded almost.
But he spent 15 grand.
I know. I got a little bit depressed at the end of that one.
Right. I mean, Jesus.
I'm very positive. I just say there are risks and unknowns, right?
Oh, yeah.
For me, Lee is the canary in the mine. Like if he's happy, it's really bullish.
Yeah.
It takes a lot. You take the temperature on Lee's demeanor, you know?
So do you think they have any chance of failing, at least going bankrupt this year? Like anything that can happen, that can tank this? Because if they don't make it to 2023, we keep talking about that's the problem. They have to make it to 2023, right?
Yeah, no, they have plenty of cash on hand for a couple of quarters. They do not have enough cash on hand for their ongoing operations and CapEx funding.
Well, they have 100 million they're raising right now, correct?
We assume that. We don't know that.
I know. There was an article we went over that they're raising. They gave some shares to somebody to sell for them. Remember that? We looked at that.
They prepared. They didn't sell them so far. They
Right.
prepared to be able to raise up to $100 million. And they also got the approval from the last shareholder meeting last year, I guess, for that.
I thought, and maybe I'm wrong, but like I don't remember that article specifically, but I remember that preparation. I think it was several quarters ago, but they said, and at least at the time, perhaps it's changed, that like they're very much not trying to dump those onto the open market just yet. They're just like preparing to have those shares. They don't have to do it later. You know, so I think it'd come kind of like as a just slide tackle from behind to investors if they ended up just like dumping all those out into the open market. At least that was my understanding of it.
Yeah, totally. They just want to be prepared when there is a short squeeze or like a huge spike that they can immediately take benefit of that and not miss it like it was the last time. Right. I
think the like best thing they could do, and I tend to focus too much on the stocks just because like, you know, that's kind of what I do.
Because you love money.
Yeah. It's like, oh, watch
how
so
dare
greedy.
you? Damn it.
So a lot of like my thoughts are kind of based on like what companies should do from the stock price, just because that's what I see. But I think they should like try to almost pump up the stock. You know, like I don't think it would be too hard and you wouldn't have to go through like any fraudulent means at all. Just like pull like Sandy Manroe in with you, like do like a couple pictures on Instagram, like bring him in for a video, have him break down your FUV like on one of his.
Yeah, that's true. They should disassemble the FUV.
I know, that'd be so cool.
Yeah, send a Roadster down to Sandy.
Yeah,
and then have him just take it all apart and talk about the engineering. And
I'd love to see like just the FUV with like the whole like capsule too. I think it'd be so much cooler to see that broken down instead of just like the smaller Roadster.
Yeah. Same thing. No, same deal to get some idea of like how they can put doors on it, you know, right? Because that's part of working within that structure of the cage. But I think the job of pumping the stock is our job. I think that's how Mark sees it. You know, inspire a few YouTubers who will then inspire the masses. You know.
Yeah, that's why I think it was almost a shame that they brought like Galileo Russell onto the board of directors, because that almost like shut him up on his YouTube channel. You know.
Yeah, he can't legally. He can't.
His biggest megaphone guy was like, that's it. He's done.
Right. So Mark should take you and me instead, and Gally can be.
Yeah.
I'd love to be on the board.
Give me a job.
Right. I'm actually more excited now for the earnings call. I think we're gonna get a lot of questions answered, especially specifically like the stuff Lee is focusing on. I think we're gonna get a lot of those questions answered. Hit the bell, like and subscribe to Lee's channel, like and subscribe to Q's Views, because remember you were like on the fence about it. You didn't know. All right, so we're sticking with it. Yeah, like and subscribe. You know, hit the notification bell, and we will see you on the next one.